Ren Nakamura's fingers danced across the memory loom, weaving strands of other people's lives into tapestries they could relive again and again. That's what memory merchants did. We helped people preserve their most precious moments, or sometimes, helped them forget the ones too painful to bear. The client sitting across from me wanted to forget her first love. Simple enough. I'd done this procedure hundreds of times before. But something about her request made my hands tremble as I reached for her temporal lobe interface. "Are you sure?" I asked, though I knew the answer. They were always sure. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I can't move on while I remember how perfect it was. Please, just take it away." As I initiated the memory extraction, my own mind buzzed with the familiar static that came from handling other people's pasts. But this time, something was different. As her first love flowed through my fingers like liquid starlight, my own buried memories began to surface. A flash of violet eyes. A laugh that sounded like wind chimes in a stellar breeze. The feeling of holding someone whose body temperature ran 10 degrees cooler than human normal. These weren't memories I should have. They weren't memories I'd ever had. Were they? I completed the client's procedure on autopilot, my mind reeling from these impossible fragments. When she left my shop in New Singapore's memory district, I locked the door and slumped against it, trying to make sense of what had happened. The memory loom hummed softly in the corner, its quantum filaments still glowing with residual energy. I'd built my reputation on being the most careful memory merchant in the Southeast Asian Federation. People came to me when they wanted precision work, no messy side effects, no bleeding between memories, no unexpected resurfacing. But now my own mind felt like a puzzle with pieces I'd never seen before. I made my way to the back room where I kept my personal memory archive. Rows of crystal matrices lined the walls, each containing perfectly preserved moments from my own life. Or at least, what I thought was my life. My fingers trembled as I pulled up my earliest memories. Childhood in Osaka. University in London. Memory merchant training in Bangkok. Everything seemed in order, but now I could feel the gaps between them, spaces where something else should have been. I accessed the public archives through my neural link, searching for any record of myself from before 15 years ago. The results came back clean. Too clean. As if someone had carefully constructed a paper trail that would hold up to casual inspection but nothing deeper. The violet eyes flashed in my mind again. This time accompanied by a name, Vena. The name sent a shock through my system that nearly brought me to my knees. I grabbed the edge of my workbench, trying to steady myself as more fragments surfaced. A spaceport on Proxima Centauri b. The taste of alien fruit that changed flavors with each bite. The sound of two heartbeats in perfect synchronization, one human, one definitely not. "Why did you make me forget?" A voice that wasn't mine echoed through my mind. "Why did you leave us?" I hadn't left. I hadn't chosen to forget. The realization hit me like a physical blow. These memories hadn't been erased, they'd been stolen. My hands moved automatically to the memory loom. I'd invented new techniques for memory extraction and preservation, but I'd never tried to use them on myself. It was considered too dangerous, the equivalent of a surgeon trying to operate on their own brain. But I had to know. I attached the temporal interfaces to my own neural points and initiated a deep scan. Pain shot through my skull as the loom tried to access blocked neural pathways. On my workbench, the crystal matrices began to glow with an intense light I'd never seen before. Images flooded my mind. A wedding ceremony where the bride's skin shifted colors with her emotions, painting the air around her in swirling auroras. A child with my dark hair and violet eyes, floating in zero gravity and laughing as she practiced shape-shifting for the first time. A home built into the crystalline cliffs of a world where the sun never quite set. A family. My family. The memory loom sparked and went dark, overwhelmed by the intensity of the recovered memories. But it had shown me enough. I wasn't just Ren Nakamura, memory merchant of New Singapore. I was something more, someone more. I had been part of humanity's first wave of interspecies families, before the isolation accords cut off most contact between Earth and other civilizations. Somewhere out there, I had a wife and daughter who were probably still wondering why I'd abandoned them. But I hadn't abandoned them. Someone had taken these memories from me, had taken me from them. And whoever had done it had been skilled enough to hide their tracks from one of the best memory technicians in human space. I began systematically reviewing every client I'd served in the past 15 years, looking for patterns or connections that might lead me to answers. Most were ordinary people seeking to preserve precious moments or forget painful ones. But there were a few cases that stood out, clients who had come with memories already too perfectly edited, as if someone else had already worked on them. A pattern emerged. Each of these suspicious cases had been referred to me by the same source, a supposedly routine memory health screening program run by the Earth Defense Ministry. I pulled up my own medical records from 15 years ago. There it was, a mandatory screening for all returning off-world travelers. The day my memories had been taken. My neural link pinged with an incoming client request. The ID coded it as another referral from the memory screening program. They were still operating, still doing to others what they'd done to me. I accepted the appointment. But this time, I would be ready. This time, I would find out why they had torn apart my family. As I prepared my shop for closing, I caught a glimpse of myself in the memory loom's reflective surface. For a moment, my eyes flashed violet, an echo of the daughter I couldn't remember raising. "I'm coming," I whispered to memories that felt both foreign and achingly familiar. "I'm coming home." I didn't know how far I would have to go or what I would have to sacrifice to find them again. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty: somewhere out there among the stars, I had a family who had lost me just as I had lost them. And no force in this universe or any other would keep me from finding my way back to them. The memory loom hummed softly in the darkness, its quantum filaments pulsing like distant stars calling me home. The coordinates led me to a derelict space station orbiting Jupiter's moon Europa. Through the viewport of my borrowed shuttle, I could see the station's quantum arrays still pulsing with weak light, the last remnants of technology that had once mapped paths between galaxies. Finding Talia Winter hadn't been easy. The quantum cartographers were a secretive bunch, especially since their art had been largely outlawed after the isolation accords. But if anyone could help me find a path to wherever my family had been taken, it would be her. The station's docking protocols were ancient, but my shuttle systems eventually managed to establish a connection. As the airlock cycled, I checked the small crystal matrix in my pocket containing the recovered fragments of my memories. It had become my talisman over the past month of searching. "You're either brave or stupid to come here," a voice echoed through the station's corridors before I'd taken 3 steps. "Probably both." I raised my hands, showing I was unarmed. "I'm looking for Talia Winter." "You found her. Or more accurately, I found you." A woman stepped out of the shadows, her dark skin marked with flowing patterns of bioluminescent quantum circuitry. She looked me up and down, her augmented eyes whirring as they adjusted. "You're the memory merchant from Singapore. The one asking dangerous questions. I need your help. Everyone who comes here needs my help. The question is whether helping you is worth the risk." She gestured for me to follow her deeper into the station. We entered what must have been the main mapping chamber. The walls were covered in flowing diagrams of quantum pathways between stars, routes that existed in the spaces between conventional spacetime. Most were faded, but some still pulsed with possibility. "Show me," Talia said, pointing to my pocket where the crystal matrix sat. I handed it over, watching as she slotted it into an ancient console. The room came alive with projections of my fragments' memories, Vena's violet eyes, our daughter's first shape-shift, the crystalline home we'd shared. "Interesting," Talia murmured. These aren't just blocked memories. They've been quantum shifted, moved sideways in probability space. Whoever took them didn't want to just hide them, they wanted to make sure they never existed in this timeline at all. Is that possible? Shouldn't be. This is way beyond human technology, even before the Accords. She traced a pattern in the air, and the projections shifted. See these quantum signatures? They're meridian work. My heart skipped a beat. Everyone knew the stories about the meridians, an ancient race that had transcended physical form to become living quantum entities. But they were supposed to be myths. What would the meridians want with my family? Talia's quantum circuits pulsed faster. They're collectors. They find moments of perfect beauty, perfect love, perfect anything, and they preserve them. Move them outside of time where they can exist forever, unchanged. The implications hit me hard. They took my family to preserve us? Like insects in amber? More like artists preserving a masterpiece. Talia's augmented eyes focused on something I couldn't see. But they didn't take your whole timeline. Just the perfect moments. The flaws, including you, were left behind. I felt sick. How do I find them? You don't. The meridians exist in pocket universes they've created between quantum strings. You can't just fly there. She paused, studying my face. But there might be a way to reach them. If you're willing to pay the price. Name it. Talia laughed, but there was no humor in it. Years. Quantum navigation through prohibited spaces costs years of your life. Each jump burns away time you've lived or time you would have lived. Most people can manage 1 or 2 jumps before their timeline frays completely. How many jumps to reach the meridians? At least 5. Maybe more. You'd be lucky to have a decade left afterward, assuming you survive at all. She shook her head. And that's assuming we can even find the right quantum pathway. There are infinite possibilities out there. I pulled out another crystal matrix, this one containing the suspicious memories I'd collected from other clients who'd been through the Earth Defense Ministry screening program. Would these help? Talia's eyes widened as she scanned the new data. These are all meridian quantum signatures too. They've been collecting from Earth for years. Using the Defense Ministry as cover. She looked at me with new respect. This could work. Each signature is like a thread leading back to their pocket universe. With enough of them, I could weave a path. Then let's begin. Not so fast. She held up a hand. There's something else you need to know. The meridians don't just collect perfect moments, they perfect them. If they've had your family all this time, changing them, preserving them, they might not be the same people you remember. They're my family. Are they? The memories you have are fragments, shadows. For all you know, the real moments weren't perfect at all. The meridians might have taken an ordinary family and turned them into something else entirely. Something that only exists in their quantum-preserved state. I thought about that. About the possibility that everything I remembered, everything I was fighting to return to, might be an idealized fiction created by beings I couldn't understand. It doesn't matter, I said finally. Even if what I remember isn't real, they're still out there. Still trapped. I have to try. Talia studied me for a long moment, her quantum circuits pulsing in complex patterns. Finally, she nodded. All right. But we do this my way. First, we need to gather more quantum signatures. Build a proper map of the meridian's collection patterns. Then we need to modify your neural architecture to survive the jumps. How long will that take? A few weeks, if we're lucky. Months if we're not. She began activating more of the station's ancient systems. And we'll need help. I know some others who've lost people to the meridians. They've been gathering data, looking for patterns. Together, we might have a chance. I've already lost 15 years, I said. What's a few more months? Talia's expression softened slightly. You really don't remember, do you? The Defense Ministry's screening program, it wasn't random. You were targeted because you were trying to expose the Meridian's collection program. You and your family were getting too close to the truth. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. We hadn't been taken because our love was perfect. We'd been torn apart because we were a threat. The Meridians have agents? I asked, trying to process this new information. Human collaborators? They have people who believe that preserving perfect moments is worth any cost. That humanity's messiness needs to be curated. Her lip curled in disgust. The Defense Ministry screens everyone who's had significant off-world contact, looking for moments worth preserving. When they find something special, they alert their Meridian masters. I thought of all the clients I'd helped forget painful memories, never questioning why some came pre-edited. How many of them had been like me, people who'd gotten too close to the truth? We're going to need help, Talia said, already working at her console. I'm sending messages to my network. People who've lost loved ones to the Meridian's collection program. They've been gathering data, looking for patterns. Some have even attempted jumps to reach the pocket universes. Did any succeed? Not yet. But they've learned from each failure. And none of them had a memory merchant's understanding of how consciousness interfaces with quantum states. She gave me an appraising look. Your expertise might be the key we've been missing. As if in response to her words, the quantum pathways projected on the walls began to shift and pulse with new energy. Patterns I'd never noticed before became clear. The signature of Meridian quantum manipulation was distinctive once you knew what to look for. First, Talia said, we need to strengthen your timeline. The jumps will try to unravel your existence, we need to anchor you more firmly in causality. She pulled out what looked like a smaller version of my memory loom. This will hurt. I thought of Vena's violet eyes, of our daughter's laughter in zero gravity. I can handle it. We'll see. Talia began attaching neural interfaces to my temples. The Meridians think they're preserving the perfect moments of existence. But they don't understand, it's the imperfect moments that make life worth living. The struggles, the growth, the changes. As she activated the device and pain began to shoot through my skull, I held on to that thought. My memories might be fragments, might even be idealized versions of reality. But somewhere out there, my real family was trapped in an endless loop of artificial perfection. And I was going to set them free. The quantum arrays pulsed brighter as Talia began the process of anchoring my timeline. Through the viewport, Jupiter hung like a giant eye watching our preparations. Somewhere in the spaces between realities, the Meridians were watching too. Let them watch, I thought as the pain intensified. I'm coming for what they stole. And this time, I won't forget. The marketplace on Ganymede didn't officially exist. Neither did the people who frequented it, temporal refugees, probability outcasts, those who had lost too many years to still register on standard chronometers. These were the time merchants, dealing in the only currency that mattered in the outer rings, years of life. Watch your step, Talia warned as we made our way through stalls selling bottled moments and compressed centuries. Time flows strangely here. Stay close. I could feel it, the way reality seemed to stretch and compress around us. My newly reinforced neural pathways, courtesy of 3 weeks of Talia's quantum anchoring procedures, buzzed with the temporal distortions. We were looking for someone specific, a time merchant named Kai Ozari who specialized in mapping safe passages through restricted space zones. According to Talia's network, he had helped others who sought the Meridian's pocket universes. There, Talia pointed to a stall decorated with crystalline hourglasses, each containing what looked like frozen starlight. That's his place. The man behind the counter had skin that seemed to shift between different ages, sometimes young, sometimes old, never settling. His eyes, though, were ancient. "Quantum jumpers," he said before we could speak. "I can smell the temporal displacement on you." "We need passage," Talia said. "Through the restricted zones. Everyone needs passage." Kai gestured to the hourglasses around him. "Few can pay the price." I stepped forward, pulling out my crystal matrix of recovered memories. "I can pay." Kai's age-shifting features settled momentarily as he examined the matrix. Meridian quantum signatures. Strong ones. He looked at me with new interest. "You're the memory merchant from Earth. The one they're hunting." That was news to me. I glanced at Talia, who nodded grimly. "The Defense Ministry put out alerts after you disappeared," she explained. "They're calling you a temporal terrorist." "Dangerous people to cross," Kai commented. "More dangerous than you know." He held the crystal matrix up to the light. "But not as dangerous as the meridians themselves." "Can you help us?" I asked. Kai set the matrix down carefully. "Perhaps. But first, you should meet the others. The ones who've tried before." He led us through a hidden door into a back room that seemed to exist in multiple temporal states simultaneously. People sat around a table that shifted between past, present, and future versions of itself. Some of the people were solid, others flickered like holograms, and a few seemed to be moving backward through time. "Welcome to the temporal resistance," Kai said with a hint of irony. "Everyone here has lost someone to the meridians. Some have even made it to the pocket universes, though none have returned whole." A woman whose timeline seemed to be running in reverse nodded to us. "I'm Petra. Or I was Petra. I made it within sight of their collection vault. Saw my husband preserved in their quantum amber." Her form flickered. "Paid with 30 years of my life to get that close." "What stopped you?" I asked. "The meridians showed me what they'd done with the moment they'd taken. Made it perfect." She smiled sadly. "The real memory, our last kiss before he shipped out to the Europa colonies, it was messy. Tears, anger, fear. But their version." She shook her head. "They turned it into something beautiful. Something pure. I couldn't bring myself to destroy that." Others around the table shared similar stories. A parent who'd lost a child's first steps. A musician who'd lost the memory of their greatest performance. All taken by the meridians in their quest to preserve perfect moments. "The problem isn't getting there," said a man who seemed to exist in 3 temporal states at once. "It's knowing what to do when you arrive. The meridians don't think they're stealing, they believe they're preserving. Saving these moments from the decay of time." "They're wrong," I said firmly. "Perfect moments aren't meant to last forever. They're perfect because they're fleeting." Kai smiled, his features settling briefly into middle age. "Now you begin to understand the real price of what we do. It's not just the years of life. It's the willingness to destroy something beautiful in order to make it real again." He pulled out a series of maps drawn in shifting temporal ink. "The path to the Meridian's collection vaults requires 5 quantum jumps. Each jump will burn away years of your life, past or future, it makes no difference to the universe. But there are ways to minimize the damage." He began laying out the route, explaining how each jump would work. The first would take us through a fold in spacetime near Saturn's rings. The second would follow a quantum wake left by a meridian collection ship. The third would require navigating through a temporal storm in the Kuiper belt. The fourth would use the gravity of a collapsed probability well. The fifth jump is different," Kai said gravely. "It requires synchronizing your quantum signature with that of the moment you're seeking. Without that resonance, you'll never find the right pocket universe." I pulled out my memory matrix. "Will these fragments be enough?" "No." Kai's features shifted rapidly through different ages. You need a stronger connection. Something that binds you to the moment they took. The quantum tether, Talia breathed. That's why no one else has succeeded. They didn't have a strong enough connection to what was taken. But I do, I said, understanding dawning. I'm not just connected to these memories, I'm part of them. Part of the moment they tried to perfect. Kai nodded. Exactly. The Meridians didn't just take your family, they took part of you. That creates a quantum entanglement they can't fully sever. Hope flared in my chest, but Petra's reverse timeline form flickered in warning. Be careful, she said. That connection goes both ways. The closer you get to their collection vault, the more you'll feel what they've done to your memories. The perfection they've created might be more tempting than you expect. I thought about that. About the possibility of seeing my family frozen in an endless moment of perfect happiness. About the temptation to leave them there, preserved in quantum amber, never to face pain or loss or change. I'll risk it, I said finally. Perfect moments aren't meant to last forever. They're meant to lead to other moments, messy, complicated, real ones. Kai began gathering temporal supplies, chronometric shielding, probability anchors, quantum resonance meters. You'll need to prepare. The jumps will try to unravel your timeline. You'll experience multiple potential lives, paths not taken, futures that might have been. How do I stay focused? Find your core truth, Talia said. The thing that remains constant across all possible timelines. I touched the crystal matrix containing my fragments of memory. I know what that is. The others around the table began sharing their knowledge, the safest routes through probability space, the signs of meridian quantum manipulation, the ways to protect your core timeline during temporal displacement. Some had made it halfway to the collection vaults, others had barely survived a single jump. Each piece of information might mean the difference between success and becoming lost in probability space. As we prepared, I noticed something strange. The various temporal refugees, people who had lost years or decades of their lives trying to reach the meridians, were helping us without asking for payment. Why? I asked Petra, whose reverse timeline was approaching the end of our conversation. Because you might succeed where we failed, she said, her form becoming more transparent as she neared her temporal exit point. And if you do, maybe you can remind the Meridians that imperfect love is better than perfect preservation. Kai finished his preparations and handed me a temporal shielding unit. One more thing, he said, his features settling into extreme old age. The Defense Ministry agents, the ones working with the Meridians. They'll be watching for quantum jumps. They'll try to stop you. Let them try, Talia said, her quantum circuits pulsing with determination. No, Kai shook his head. You don't understand. They're not just collaborators. They're failed jumpers themselves. People who tried to reach the collection vaults and lost so much of their timelines that they went mad. Now they serve the Meridians, believing that preservation is better than the pain of linear time. A chill ran through me as I remembered the medical officer who had performed my memory screening 15 years ago. Had he been one of these temporal casualties? Someone who had lost so much trying to save a loved one that he now helped the Meridians take others? We'll be careful, I promised. Kai's features shifted to childhood as he handed me the final piece of equipment, a quantum resonance tracker. Remember, he said in a young voice that carried ancient wisdom, the hardest part won't be reaching them. It will be choosing to disturb their perfect preservation. To reintroduce chaos into their carefully curated moment. I understand. Do you? His face aged rapidly to his elder form. You're not just going to rescue your family. You're going to destroy the perfect version of them that the Meridians have created. Are you ready for them to be real again? To be flawed? I thought of Vena's violet eyes, of our daughter's first shapeshift. The memories were beautiful, perfect. But they were also static, unchanging. Dead things preserved in quantum amber. Yes, I said firmly. Perfect moments are meant to be stepping stones to new moments. Not endpoints. Around the table, the temporal refugees nodded in approval. Some were already fading, their timelines carrying them away from this moment. Others were just arriving, their probability waves collapsing into temporary solidity. Then let's begin, Talia said, her quantum circuits blazing with possibility. As we made our final preparations, I looked around at these people who had lost so much trying to reclaim what the Meridians had taken. They were temporally wounded, probability stretched, existing in multiple states simultaneously. But they were alive. Changing. Growing. Perfect moments, I realized, were like stars. Beautiful to look at, but fatal to touch. Real love happened in the spaces between perfect moments, in the growth, the struggles, the changes that the Meridians tried to edit away. I was ready for the jumps. Ready to burn away years of my life to reach my family. Ready to destroy the perfect preservation of our love so that it could live and grow again. The time merchants raised their glasses in a toast that happened across multiple temporal states simultaneously. To imperfect moments, they said in voices that echoed through probability space. To imperfect moments, I agreed, and prepared for the first jump. The first quantum jump felt like being turned inside out. The second was like drowning in possibilities. By the third, I had lost track of how many years I had burned away. My hair had gone gray, then black, then gray again as my timeline fluctuated between potential states. Hold on, Talia's voice echoed through probability space as we emerged from the temporal storm in the Kuiper belt. Her quantum circuits were blazing so brightly they left trails across multiple dimensions. 2 more jumps. I checked the quantum resonance tracker. The signal from my family's preserved moment was growing stronger, pulling us toward the Meridian's collection vault like a temporal beacon. But something else was pulling at us too. Defense Ministry ships, Talia warned. 3 of them. Timeline signatures are chaotic, definitely failed jumpers. Through the quantum wake, I could see their vessels rippling through different probability states. They had once been standard Earth ships, but exposure to temporal energy had twisted them into nightmare configurations that existed in multiple times simultaneously. They're trying to box us in, I said, watching as they maneuvered through probability space. Force us into a temporal eddy. Not just that. Talia's augmented eyes whirred as she analyzed their approach. They're synchronizing their quantum signatures. Trying to match our temporal frequency. I understood with sudden clarity. They're not trying to stop us. They're trying to follow us to the vault. Makes sense, Talia said grimly. Failed jumpers, still looking for their own lost moments. They think serving the Meridians will eventually lead them home. The Defense Ministry ships were closing in, their temporal wakes creating interference patterns that threatened to destabilize our carefully planned jump trajectory. We needed to lose them before the 4th jump, or they'd follow us right to the collection vault. I reached for my memory loom, which I'd modified with Kai's temporal technology. I have an idea. But it's risky. Everything about this is risky. I began weaving quantum filaments, not to preserve memories this time, but to project them. The fragments of my recovered memories spooled out into probability space like bait. The Defense Ministry ships hesitated, their temporal signatures fluctuating as they detected the familiar pattern of Meridian-preserved moments. Then, as I'd hoped, they began to turn toward the false trail. Now! I shouted. Talia initiated the 4th jump just as the Defense Ministry ships committed to pursuing the memory fragments. The quantum leap felt like being shattered into a million pieces and reassembled wrong, but when reality stabilized, we were alone in a region of spacetime I couldn't recognize. Where are we? I asked, trying to orient myself in the shifting quantum landscape. The edges of their domain, Talia said softly. Look. All around us, space-time had been sculpted into impossible geometries. Quantum structures that looked like crystalline palaces floated in the void, each one containing thousands of preserved moments from across the universe. The quantum resonance tracker was going wild, detecting perfectly preserved memories in every direction. First steps, last kisses, moments of triumph and revelation and transcendent joy, all captured and held in stasis by the Meridian's incomprehensible technology. How do we find the right one? I asked, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of their collection. We don't, Talia said. We let it find us. She adjusted our quantum signature, using my connection to the stolen memories as a beacon. Almost immediately, one of the crystalline structures began to pulse in resonance with our frequency. The fifth jump was different from the others. Instead of fighting against probability space, we let ourselves be pulled into it, drawn by the quantum entanglement between my fractured timeline and the moment the Meridians had stolen. Reality shifted, twisted, and then we were inside. The Meridian's collection vault was both larger and smaller than I had expected, a space that seemed to fold in on itself in impossible ways. And everywhere I looked, there were memories. Not preserved in crystal matrices like the ones I worked with, but existing as fully realized moments of spacetime, each one perfect and eternal. Ren. Talia's voice was tight with warning. We're not alone. They emerged from between the preserved moments, beings of pure quantum energy, their forms shifting between possibilities faster than my mind could process. The Meridians themselves. We have been expecting you, they communicated directly into my consciousness. Few achieve the fifth jump. Fewer still retain enough of their timeline to remain coherent. Where are they? I demanded. My family, where have you taken them? Taken? The concept seemed to amuse them. We preserve. We perfect. We save moments from the decay of linear time. One of the quantum beings gestured, and space folded around us. Suddenly we were floating before a preserved moment that resonated with my very being, the day my daughter first learned to shift forms. But it wasn't exactly as I remembered. The rough edges had been smoothed away, the imperfections polished out. In this version, there were no tears of frustration before the success, no moments of doubt. Just pure, perfect joy. We have improved it, the Meridians explained. As we improve all moments worthy of preservation. Another gesture, another fold in space. Now we were watching my wedding to Venna, but again, it was different. The nervous stumble over vows was gone. The moment of cultural confusion during the ceremony had been edited out. It was flawless, pristine, and somehow less real than the fragments in my memories. You haven't improved these moments, I said, understanding finally hitting me. You've killed them. The Meridian's quantum forms flickered with what might have been confusion. We have made them perfect. Eternal. Is this not what all beings seek? No, I said firmly. Perfect moments aren't meant to be eternal. They're meant to lead to other moments, messy, complicated, real ones. By preserving them like this, you're preventing them from becoming something new. You would prefer imperfection? Decay? Loss? Yes, I said. Because that's what makes life real. That's what makes love real. I could feel them probing my consciousness, trying to understand. They had been collecting perfect moments for so long, they had forgotten why moments mattered in the first place. Show me, I demanded. Show me my family as they really are now, not just these preserved moments. The Meridians conferred in quantum pulses I couldn't understand. Finally, space folded once more. We floated before a quantum bubble containing Venna and our daughter. They were preserved in a moment of perfect happiness, but I could see now what that preservation had cost them. Their movements were too smooth, their expressions too serene. The quantum energy of the Meridians' preservation had slowly transformed them into something more like the Meridians themselves, beings of pure possibility, disconnected from the messy reality of linear time. How long have they been here? I asked, though I feared I knew the answer. Time has no meaning in our collection, the Meridians responded. They exist in all moments and no moments. That's not living, Talia said quietly. That's just existing. I reached out toward the quantum bubble, and for a moment, I felt the pull of its perfection. How easy it would be to step inside, to join them in this flawless eternal moment. No pain, no loss, no fear of change. But that wasn't what I had come for. I want them back, I said. Not just the perfect moments you've preserved, but all of it. The struggles, the fights, the misunderstandings. Everything that makes us real. You would destroy our preservation? The Meridian's quantum forms pulsed with something like alarm. Return them to linear time where moments fade and die? Yes, I said. Because perfect moments aren't meant to be endings. They're meant to be beginnings. I reached for my modified memory loom one last time. Not to preserve, not to edit, but to break open the quantum bubble that held my family frozen in artificial perfection. Others have tried, the Meridians warned. Their timelines shattered. Their minds broke. This is why they now serve us, seeking perfection to heal their fractured existence. I thought of the Defense Ministry agents, the failed jumpers who had lost themselves trying to reach this place. I could understand now why they had chosen to serve the Meridians. The promise of perfect preservation must have seemed like salvation to beings with broken timelines. But I hadn't come to preserve. I had come to set free. Help me, I said to Talia. One last quantum manipulation. She didn't hesitate. Her circuits blazed as she linked her quantum technology with my memory loom. Together, we began to unravel the Meridian's preservation field. The perfect moment began to crack. You cannot comprehend what you are destroying, the Meridians insisted. The beauty we have created here. Beauty isn't meant to be static, I said, continuing to work as reality itself seemed to protest what we were doing. It's meant to grow, to change, to evolve. The quantum bubble shattered. For a moment, everything was chaos, timelines intersecting, possibilities collapsing, quantum energy dispersing in waves that threatened to tear apart the fabric of spacetime itself. Then, a gasp. A real one, not a perfectly preserved echo. Vena's violet eyes blinked, focusing slowly as linear time reasserted itself. Our daughter's form shifted erratically as she readjusted to existing in a single moment rather than all moments simultaneously. Ren? Vena's voice was rough from disuse, but real. So wonderfully real. What, how long? Too long, I said, reaching for them both. But I'm here now. And we're leaving. You cannot simply leave, the Meridians protested. The quantum damage to their timelines, they are part of our collection now. No, I said firmly. They're part of my family. And families aren't meant to be preserved. They're meant to grow. I could feel the years I had burned away in the quantum jumps, see them in my reflection in Vena's eyes. But I could also feel new moments beginning to form, messy, imperfect, beautiful moments that would never be preserved in quantum amber. Let's go home, I said to my family. All of us. Together. The Meridians made no move to stop us as Talia began calculating the return jumps. Perhaps they were too fascinated by the concept we represented, beings who would choose imperfect reality over perfect preservation. As we prepared to leave their collection vault, I turned back to them one last time. Perfect moments aren't meant to be endings, I said. They're meant to be remembered, learned from, built upon. That's what makes them truly perfect. The quantum beings pulsed with what might have been understanding. Or perhaps it was just another possibility in an infinite sea of them. We jumped. The return journey burned away what remained of my youth. By the time we reached Talia's station orbiting Europa, my hair was completely white, and the years I had traded for the quantum jumps had left their mark in the lines on my face. But watching Venna and our daughter, Celine, readjust to linear time made every lost year worth it. It's strange, Venna said, her violet eyes tracking the movement of Europa across Jupiter's face. In their collection, everything was perfect. No pain, no fear, no uncertainty. But it wasn't living. Celine, now a teenager by linear time's reckoning, was practicing her shape-shifting. After being frozen in quantum perfection for so long, the ability came in stutters and starts. Sometimes her forms would blur between possibilities, caught between the meridian's preservation and reality's flow. "You're forcing it too much," I said gently. "Let it happen naturally. Time moves at its own pace now." "I remember when I could hold all forms simultaneously," she said, frustration evident as her features rippled between human and Centaurian. "In their vault, everything was possible at once." "But nothing was real," Venna added softly. "We were just possibilities that never became actual moments." Talia's quantum circuits pulsed softly as she monitored their readjustment to linear time. The transition wasn't easy. 15 years of existing in quantum preservation had changed them in ways we were only beginning to understand. "Their timelines are stabilizing," she reported. "But there's something else. The meridians, they're watching us." I had felt it too, quantum ripples in spacetime, the attention of beings who had spent eons preserving perfect moments now focused on our imperfect reunion. They were learning from us, studying how we chose to exist in linear time despite its flaws. "Let them watch," I said. "Maybe they'll finally understand." But understanding came sooner than we expected. The quantum ripples intensified, and suddenly the station was filled with the presence of the meridians themselves, their energy forms more focused now, less scattered across possibilities. "We have been observing," they communicated directly into our minds. "Your choice puzzles us. The moments we preserved were perfect. Yet you choose this instead?" Celine's form stabilized suddenly, settling into a unique blend of human and Centaurian features that would have been impossible in their perfect preservation. "I couldn't have found this form in your vault," she said. "Because it didn't exist until now. Until I struggled and failed and tried again." The meridian's quantum forms pulsed with what might have been curiosity. "You value the creation of new moments over the preservation of perfect ones?" "Yes," Venna said firmly. "Because perfect moments aren't meant to be endings. They're meant to inspire what comes next." An idea struck me, one that might help bridge the gap between our understanding of time and theirs. I reached for my memory loom, modified now by both quantum technology and my experiences in probability space. "Let me show you something," I said to the meridians. "Not a perfect moment preserved, but a sequence of moments. Each one leading to the next." I began to weave our family's timeline, not just the perfect moments they had tried to preserve, but everything. The first time Venna and I met, with all its awkward cultural misunderstandings. Celine's birth, with its complications and fears and overwhelming joy. The daily moments of learning each other, growing together, becoming more than we had been alone. The meridians watched, their quantum forms shifting as they processed this new way of experiencing time. These imperfections, they lead to new patterns. New possibilities we had not considered. "That's what life is," Talia interjected, her quantum circuits resonating with the truth of it. "Not a collection of perfect moments, but the space between them. The growth. The change. We have preserved countless moments," the meridians communicated. "But perhaps, we have missed what connects them." Their quantum forms began to shift, taking on aspects of linear time while retaining their fundamental nature. They were adapting, evolving, something they had denied to all the moments they had preserved. "The Defense Ministry agents," I said suddenly, remembering the failed jumpers who had become their servants. "The ones whose timelines shattered trying to reach your vault. Can you help them?" Their patterns are complex, the meridians responded. Broken across multiple probability streams. But perhaps, with this new understanding, they reached out with their quantum energy, and spacetime rippled around us. Through the station's viewports, we could see the Defense Ministry ships that had been haunting the outer system, collecting more moments for the meridians. Their twisted forms began to stabilize as the meridians applied their new understanding of temporal flow. You're not fixing them, I realized, watching the process. You're helping them grow into something new. Yes, the meridians agreed. As you have helped us grow. We thought preservation was the highest form of existence. But preservation without growth is just another form of entropy. The implications of this revelation began to ripple through probability space. Throughout the Meridian's collection vault, perfectly preserved moments began to shift and change, not being destroyed but being allowed to flow into new moments. Across the solar system, other temporal refugees felt the change. Petra's reverse timeline began to stabilize. Kai's age-shifting settled into a natural flow. The members of the temporal resistance found their fractured timelines healing in new and unexpected ways. What happens now? Celine asked, her form shifting one last time before settling into what she would become, not a perfect preservation of what she had been, but something new and wonderfully real. Now? I looked at my family, Vena's violet eyes filled with possibilities that could actually become real, Celine's form expressing both her heritage and her growth, my own timeline marked by the years I had traded but rich with the moments those trades had bought. Now we live. The Meridians remained with us for a time, learning how to experience moments without trying to perfect them. They watched as Celine struggled with and eventually mastered her new form. They observed as Vena and I rediscovered each other, our relationship deeper for having fought to reclaim it. They studied the way imperfect moments led to unexpected beauty. We will continue to collect moments, they told us as they prepared to return to their quantum realm. But not to preserve them unchanging. To learn from them. To grow with them. To understand the space between perfect moments. Will we see you again? Celine asked. We exist in all moments now, but choose to experience them in sequence. We will watch your story unfold, and learn from each imperfect moment. As they departed, their quantum forms leaving ripples in probability space, I felt something I hadn't expected, hope for the future. Not a perfect future, preserved and unchanging, but a real one. One we would build together, moment by imperfect moment. Talia's quantum circuits pulsed with satisfaction as she prepared to return to her work mapping paths between stars. You know, she said, most of the temporal refugees are choosing to keep the marks of their journey. The years traded, the experiences gained. They're wearing them like badges of honor now. I looked at my reflection in the viewport, white hair, lined face, years burned away in quantum jumps. But also wisdom gained, love reclaimed, family restored. Some prices are worth paying, I said. Vena took my hand, her touch grounding me in this moment, not a perfect moment, but a real one. Celine, in her new form that expressed both her past and her future, began practicing her shape-shifting again. Not to achieve perfection, but to discover who she was becoming. Through the viewport, Jupiter hung like a reminder of constancy in change. Europa's ice shifted and cracked, creating new patterns. The quantum wake of the Meridian's passage rippled through probability space, not preserving moments now, but connecting them. Let's go home, I said to my family. Which home? Celine asked. The one on Earth? Or the one in the Centauri system? Neither, Vena said, understanding in her violet eyes. A new home. One we'll build together. I powered up my memory loom one last time, not to preserve this moment, but to remember it. To let it flow into the next moment, and the next, each one imperfect and therefore precious. Perfect moments weren't meant to be endings, after all. They were meant to be beginnings. And this moment, watching Europa's ice crack and shift while my family planned our future, wasn't perfect. It was better than perfect. It was real. And somewhere in the quantum realm, the Meridians watched and learned as a new kind of moment unfolded, one that drew its beauty not from preservation, but from change. Not from perfection, but from possibility. Not from endings, but from the infinite space between stars where stories never truly end. They were learning, as we had learned, that the most beautiful moments aren't the ones you can hold forever. They're the ones that lead you home.